voice actors. So first I'd like to introduce Carlos.
Hey everybody, and happy birthday over there.
Yeah. Carlos, please tell everybody a little something about who you are, what you do, and then we'll go to Isaac.
My name is Carlos Alazraqui. I'm a Burbank dad of 2 daughters, and I love whiskey nights with my friends, and I do voiceover acting and other stuff, but I started, my very first voiceover job was Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life, and then I've done a bunch of stuff since then.
Awesome. Isaac, how about you?
My name is Isaak Wells, and I am a dad and a voice actor as well, so there's a lot of stuff.
We got 3 dads up here. What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Exactly. Glad you're here. So the first thing I want to ask is, how does one get into the world of voice acting? In other words, was it intentional from teenage years, or did it sort of spontaneously emerge out of other things you were trying to do? We'll start with Isaac.
I got into it in kind of a weird way. I started doing YouTube videos with my friends.
Yeah.
And I started impersonating like a lot of things. And I was like the only person, like we were just a small group of friends, so we didn't have a lot of people. So I just started dressing up in costumes and just impersonating something. And then they never got really big, but an independent game developer was like, hey, I don't have a lot of money, but I like this impression of a character you do. Can you adjust it a little bit and then do a character for my game? And I was like, all right, gaming's my life, so I will do it for you. And then he knew somebody, and then, kind of went down like a little trickle effect. It's all about networking.
Networking, and there's things that are a little, can I say, easier about it now?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, I put my stuff on YouTube because I love to talk, and I love to hear people hearing me talk, but you never know who's going to watch. And when you're doing a gig, you never know who's going to be in the audience. So I always tell my friends, do the gig. And as we talked about yesterday, treat it as if it's your last one.
Yeah.
And maybe someone's out there hears you. You have no clue what they're going to ask you about. But no, so all you budding people who want to get out there, make things happen at where you can. And maybe someone will see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dee Baker has a site called I Want to Be a Voice Actor. I Want to Be a Voice Actor by Dee Bradley Baker, who's phenomenal with voices and creatures. So that's a good site. But yeah, YouTube, Isaac's origin being in the hospital when he was younger and watching cartoons and intaking all the influences for myself. Parents from South America, no me digas Carlitos, tienes que hacer cosas en la casa. And then my best friend's parents being from Glasgow, Scotland, 5 days a week over there, listening to them speak, Uncle Izu's way up here and Uncle Danny is down here. So as a kid, like you, soaking up all these influences and drawing from real life, and I think that's the origin of voiceover. And then finally landing Rocco, but learning on the job, watching Charlie Adler, a master. Even Tom Kenny, who's SpongeBob, when we started out, we were green. We weren't Charlie Adler or Jim Cummings or Billy West. And so as we got to work with those types of actors, we learned from them. And I still learn from other actors out like on Fairly OddParents from Tara Strong and Darren Norris and Suzanne and Eric Bauza, who's amazing. We all just keep learning how to do voices, refine them, and act and get better at acting.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you, I noticed earlier that you had won in college, in your 4th attempt, a stand-up comedy competition.
Yeah, there's one in Sacramento State that I did, but then in '93, the San Francisco comedy competition. We talked about it yesterday with Patton Oswalt and Mark Maron. I actually won and was able to beat them in a stand-up competition, and then years later they're super famous. And I know Mark Maron is still stuck in his craw like I won, but I'm like, Mark, you interviewed Obama yesterday. You're fine. Your career is fine. And Patton, of course, is huge and funny, and it was just a wonderful moment in time that, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll be able to point. See this kid? Your father.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it was a cool thing.
Well, winning that stuff, it's there forever. Yeah, right? It's a moment, like
indelible.
you said yesterday. Okay, so the acting chops then. So what are the experiences you've both had that sort of developed your acting chops that let you do this job as a voice actor?
That's a good question.
And if it's just like doing it, then it's just like doing it. Go ahead.
Isaac,
you can go first.
Well, again, it was like watching Charlie Adler let go, and he has a class. Like, you need to not be afraid to be silly when you're doing a voice, When you watch Tom Kenny do SpongeBob, he's standing, and Bill Foggerbach, he's like, hey, Patrick, oh, SpongeBob, over there. I mean, they fully embody it.
Yes.
They are not afraid to look silly or crazy. They're just doing it. You do a character from the inside out. You see it in your head. And we all do it if we have a pet, right? Like, yo, man, I'm going to see you later. I'm going to hang out with my dog. All right, see. I got you. You do what pee-pee on the carpet. You made a big pee-pee. And you're just doing it. You're not saying, how would I do it? You see that dog, and that face of that dog or pet elicits something from you that makes you do it. And I think it's the same.
Yeah. I remember, I just watched TV a lot because I was, like, as he said, I grew up in a hospital with, like, an amazing amount of health conditions. And I used to just watch TV, and I was really in love with actors that I could see doing voices and acting at the same time, like presenting. And one of my favorite people to ever watch was Phil Hartman from SNL way back in the day, and he was Troy McClure on The Simpsons. And, you may have heard of me. You know, like he had that car salesman voice, and I was in love with that.
Yes.
And so I used to watch reruns of like news radio all the time and just watch him perform. And then I started getting more towards like the voice stuff. And one of my favorite voice actors I ever listened to first, like when I really was Tony Plana.
Oh yeah, Tony.
And he was such an inspiration to me, as well as you. I watched you when I was a kid, and I was like, this is amazing. So like you just kind of, when you get in the studio, you just kind of let go of every bias or something.
Yes.
Like one of the first things I tell anybody is just like, oh, when you're auditioning, what do? I'm like, you know, when your parents said to have that inside voice, that's gone. Everything is gone.
Everything's gone.
So like when I did Skeletor, I just went straight up, and I was just like, I am evil. You know, like really, like I wanted to get like a awesome. Kind of like a high pitched tone, but I wanted to have a little bit of growl in it because Alan Oppenheimer was so good at that. And that's really that was like a perfect example of a voice can define a character. Because if he was any other character, any other voice, you would have kind of forgotten him. But if he was like this high pitched, I am always evil, always on, all the time. You know, that's
Exactly.
you know.
Well, there are really good life lessons for what you guys have just said, because you made the case about being at home with your dog and you know, going into a certain persona and then talking to your parents or your friends and being in a different persona. Those things come easy to us because we've lived them, and we don't think of life as practice. Right? But life is practice. And there's a thing out there called imposter syndrome. And it's this idea that I'm not good enough for this, or I'm not ready for this. And what people often don't understand is you weren't ready for anything you are until you've done it over and over. So the idea of practicing, taking the chance, jumping in and just being something, you do that often enough, it can become what you are.
It's your toolkit now. It's like, oh yeah, I got a Phillips head, flat head, I got that. You know, I know how to do that because you've been doing it your whole life. It becomes innate. But I was going to retrace and go that even my daughters had different voices. I love raising Arizona. I know the parts of convenience stores, but the sun don't rise and set on the corner grocery. But there's a scene where Mrs. Huffhines, Mrs. Arizona, is rocking the baby, and Nicolas Cage is in the window, and she has the baby, and she's going beep, 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 beep. And so when Riley was born, she was beep, beep, beep.
Okay.
Beep, beep, beep. And then when Austin was born, I just looked at her face, and she was Moño, Moño. So beep, 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 and Moño. Those were the voices that came out when I looked at my respective kids. And they had a reference, though.
And they'll be with you forever. They'll be with you forever.
Beep, beep, beep
so that's the thing. Be who you want to be. And take the hits for doing it. Because, you know, it's not easy becoming something different. All right. But with work, that's how it happens. So that's fantastic. So what's the role that you've done where you got in the studio and you were most surprised? Surprised by yourself, surprised by the writing, surprised by the setting, but a situation where you went in to do the job and all of a sudden, boom, you're surprised. You can think about that one for a second.
You know, Isaac?
I have no idea. Like, I thought you'd been surprised as in, like, wow, I got that. You know.
Well, that can be it as well, right?
I think when I was auditioning for Family Guy, and they were like, "Oh, we need somebody to play Vladimir Putin," I was like, okay, I'm gonna do like a really bad version of this because I'm not gonna get it. But I don't care.
Oh.
I think somebody's gonna listen to it, so I was like, look, it's me, Vladimir Putin. I'm taking selfies with cats or something. Like something really like I was doing a really bad. I was actually doing kind of a Ukrainian accent, which this is all aged horribly, by the way.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, you got it, and I was like, what? Like I did, and they were like, oh, okay, would you? We have this voice we need Whiplash for Iron Man's event on Marvel Avengers Academy, and I was like, cool, and I literally just did that same voice for Whiplash because I had watched the movie Iron Man 2, but I was like trying to study how he was doing the voice, and it ended up being a lot like Putin. So I was like, I felt bad. I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but they were like, we like this. So I was like, I'm surprised I got it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And you never know what they're gonna like.
No, I had no idea.
Exactly.
I just went into it like you were saying, like imposter syndrome, like I'm not good enough. A lot of people have that idea, but my theory was, there might be people like, because I'm a millennial, so I grew up with all these already built icons upon icons, and there was like generations before me, and at first I was a little bit daunted by it, like, like somebody like Carlos or even like I went back to Mel Blanc and I was like, I'm not going to be as good as these people. But then I had this thought, I was like, well, it's not that I'm not going to be as good as these people. I'm going to be me, my version.
Yep.
And my version is nobody else's.
Yep.
So.
And then you are going to be someone else's inspiration.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they are going to be someone else's inspiration. I mean, I've been doing my job as a professor for a little while now. And I'll have conversations with students and I'll have this look in their face like, dude, you're smart. And I remember looking at my professors thinking, damn, you're smart.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be that smart. And then what I recognize, it's just 40 years of work.
Yeah.
It's just 40 years of work. It's not like I was born and boop, I was just this. It's just work and work and work. Yeah. And that's one thing you don't see in the product. Yeah. In other words, you don't see the work. You see the outcome, but you don't see the whole life of work behind it.
It takes retrospect to appreciate it. The one that surprised me was Rocco, because I was a young comic and I was very big on stage and liked to imitate big, loud characters. And we weren't finding the voice, and I picked up a vacuum manual, and I just saw this snout and big eyes and TV, and I just went, plug in unit to slot C. And I felt like you, though, and I'm with Charlie Eller and Tom, and Tom is getting to do all these extra characters on the show, and I was kind of jealous. And I didn't appreciate how wonderful and subtle Rocco was, because I wanted to be more. And then it took me a while to go, yeah, Rocco's pretty cool. Be the straight guy. Be the Seinfeld of the Seinfeld show. Let everybody else be the Kramers and the Georges and the Elaines, and Rocco has his place. And so there's now appreciation for being the eye of the storm with a character. So
and then do well on that character.
Yeah,
and you never know who watches that show, who watches your YouTube channel and says, hey, can you do this for us? Next thing you're doing Vladimir Putin, and it becomes something Iron Man. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to ask you guys is, well, first of all, Carlos, I want to say thank you. And the reason I want to say thank you is because Fairly OddParents was about the smartest thing on TV I'd watched with my kids. Yeah. That show was the Flintstones of its time.
The mind of Bush Hartman, right?
Unbelievable. So I appreciate the voice work you did on that show.
Oh, thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, that cast was just amazing. And as I explained, Rocco, I was explaining to Isaac that Mr. Crocker is a blend of, because people will say, like, hey, that sounds a lot like Mr. Burns. I go, well, for a reason. If you're going to borrow from the best. So it's Harry Shearer's Montgomery Burns Smithers Revenge Dish. Bless yourself cold. It's a little higher. And then it's Richard Dreyfuss. When you said a shark, you didn't say a huge, great white shark. And then you are not evil, you are good. Say it again. Gene Wilder. And you mix that all together and you get Timmy Turner Fairies. And it's just a blend of all those three. You're borrowing from really great references and cocktailing it and go, I think I have a voice. So,
and that's also after years of work.
Yeah, refining it
and
changing it. Right? Yeah, and the famous Homer Simpson from Castellaneta started out as Walter Matthau. Hey, boy, give me back that candy bar, boy. Put it back, boy. And then it became something more like this. It's just refined itself into what it is now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So have either of you ever had someone come up to you other than just now and say, thanks for that work, or like that that character changed my life, or that character proved important to us?
Probably not as much as him, but I get that kind of stuff, especially through social media,
Yeah.
a lot. And at this convention, I've had a lot of people come up and be like, I've done a lot of video games, and they really liked some of them. There was a game I did for Nintendo called Death and Taxes, and I did like this.